Hi, everybody. My name's Kyle. This is going to be interview number one with my friend Cole here for CRE number six. And today we are talking about grief. So, Cole, I'm going to jump right in, give you kind of the question of the day, and we'll get going. So, grief is an important part of life. We grieve for many reasons, including lost loves, failed goals and dreams, friendships that become distant or broken, for our youth, beauty, innocence, etc. Additionally, we also grieve after the death of a loved one, be they a family member, a friend, or an acquaintance. So, in order to better understand your grieving process, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions today. The first being, what is your grieving process?
Um, I don't think I really have like a set in stone process that I've like thought about before, but I more just kind of handle it as the situation arises,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I've definitely experienced a lot of grief in my life. And but I don't think I've ever like solidified a proper process.
Fair enough. Um, so the processes that you do have, obviously, you said it's situational. Where do you think those processes come from? If you have any processes, do you think you might have observed that in others or created your own kind of individual grieving process?
Um, I think it's more kind of individualistic and to the situation. Like for example, like 2 years ago, I lost my dog. He got hit by a car. It was like extremely unexpected, like not prepared at all. And that was just I shut down for like weeks. And it was like unhealthy. I didn't feel good at all. And then recently back in March, I lost my grandfather who we kind of knew he was going downhill a little bit. It happened faster than expected, but I was in a completely another city working, and I had to continue working 12 hours a day for another 2 weeks before even coming home and facing the reality of it. And so the hit of that was didn't that didn't become a reality for me for like 2 to 3 weeks, and it all kind of hit at once.
Mm-hmm.
And so that ended up like forming very differently from the difference between losing my dog and then losing my grandfather.
For sure.
Both hurt extremely terribly, but those the situation that I was in when those happened uh, dictated how I reacted to those.
Very fair. So I guess that kind of answers the next question is like whether or not your process changes based on the situation. So you kind of do have kind of like a variable grieving system. Do you think, do you have anywhere where you think you might have learned how you grieve? Like, did a parent or sibling kind of grieve similarly to you and influence the way that you grieve?
Um, no, not really. I kind of grieve on my own, separated from people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't like to be around people when I'm grieving.
Mm-hmm.
I just like to be alone,
Right.
and so I think it's just my personal headspace of what makes me, I guess, the least uncomfortable um, during those situations.
Fair enough.
And I don't think I've ever repeated a grieving process before.
Very interesting. All right, so I got one more question for you. It's have you ever experienced disenfranchised grief? And I'll kind of briefly describe what that is. So, disenfranchised grief is kind of this idea that when you're grieving over something, no matter what that loss is, maybe people around you don't recognize it as something that you should be grieving over, and they kind of maybe discount it or make it seem like something that you shouldn't be grieving over at all. You ever experienced anything like that?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, maybe like a tough like loss in baseball
Mm-hmm.
after like a really tough season, where like not just me, but like the entire team
Right.
feels really down about a loss that we know we should have won, and it
Mm-hmm.
mattered. And then like maybe people like kind of people who didn't like quite understand like it wasn't just a game, like the amount of countless days and hours like we
Right.
put into preparing for that moment and we blew it. um but nothing like too harsh or anything like that. It's just kind of like you always there's always a couple people who are like, well, it's just a game kind of
Right.
mentality. So I guess that would be like the closest thing to that, but it makes it easier when you had like your team to deal with that. So
For sure. How would you say that like you express that grief?
um honestly, most of us, like, we were down for 24 hours, and then the very next day was the start of off season, and we just literally like worked harder than any of us had ever had before, and then we came back and won it next year. So,
Awesome.
and the year
Um,
after that.
is there anything that you think could be done that could have helped maybe to move that grief from like a disenfranchised grief to a traditional kind of grief, and where you would get all the benefits and support that you would had it been something that wasn't disenfranchised?
um, I'm not too sure.
It's fine. Well, that is all I really have for you today. Once again, I appreciate you coming on here and taking some time out of your day to answer a few questions for me. So,
No
um,
problem.
yeah, hope you have a great rest of your evening.
You too.